back with the latest episode of the Goosed Podcast. Today I am talking to Luisa, who is the new country manager for Swappy in Ireland. So if anybody doesn't know what Swappy is, they are the number one online destination in Europe for buying and selling refurbished iPhones. So Luisa, would you like to introduce yourself, explain, I suppose, your backstory and how you ended up as the country manager in Ireland?
Yeah, and thanks for having me at Goosed. John, super nice to meet you. So yes, I'm Luisa, country manager for Ireland at Swappy. I'm not sure if your audience knows what Swappy is, but I'll just give a brief overview. So we are one of the largest or Europe's largest iPhone refurbisher. So we buy and sell, as you explained, iPhones in Europe. And we entered Ireland in 2020, but I recently took over the position. So we have been present in the market for nearly 4 years now. And a little bit of my background, I'm actually half Norwegian, half Portuguese. I lived in Ireland, worked in tech for a couple of years, and then moved back to Lisbon to work remotely, and have been working as country manager for Portugal, and recently took this kind of new big opportunity to manage Ireland, which has been a very exciting and challenging new market for me. So super great to be here and explain a little bit of what we've been doing.
I can tell you for a fact, anyway, the weather in Lisbon is a lot nicer than the weather in Limerick. I definitely miss the sunshine there. So, like, what I know about Swappy is a big part of what you're obviously trying to do is, suppose how to phrase this. The market in technology is very much wasteful when it comes to recycling and sustainability in the market. And from my understanding, the whole purpose of refurbing phones is to give them a second lease of life, to help improve sustainability. I see a stat on the website there where it's 23,000 tons of CO2 saved by using Swappy versus like buying new phones.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the main aspects of Swappy, is that we are, of course, a sustainable business, and that has been our focus from the core. And when our founders founded business in 2016. But this sustainability aspect, and what customers and people are not aware, is that a used phone, refurbished phone, a new phone, there are three different categories. And with a refurbished phone, what we do is, let's say, John, you have an old phone, iPhone, sitting in your drawer, not knowing what to do with it. You would then find a Swappy, sell the phone to us, and it would pass through a very extensive refurbishment process, have kind of 52 steps where we always check the phone inside, outside, so to not get into big specifics. And then we would, of course, refurbish it, repair it, and then sell it again. And this process, which is very interesting compared to a production of a new phone, because essentially there is some type of production involved, you save 70% CO2 emissions, according to our own research. So there is a big impact by buying a new phone, and you can reduce this impact drastically by buying a refurbished phone. So that's what we kind of focus on, is trying to minimize the CO2 waste, but also educating customers that it is not like a used phone. It is refurbished, repaired, has the warranty, has the guarantee of a big company behind it, but also the sustainability part of it, which has become more and more trendy throughout the years, especially after COVID. So we started during COVID in Ireland, and there's been, not only with tech, like huge like trend of this sustainability, but also in clothing, groceries, a lot of different categories. So I think we're on the right wave in Ireland as well, because consumers are more and more aware of their sustainable choices, I would say.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because I remember, like, when I worked in phone shops, like, the term fast fashion is obviously trendy at the moment, but like, I was working in phone shops nearly a decade ago, and refurbs existed then, but there was always this barrier of people going, that's basically someone else's phone that you replace the screen on, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, I suppose it's like, how do we break that down for someone to explain to them, like, this, yes, it had a previous life, but we've changed key components here, and it's essentially a phone that has been, you know, rebranded as such to be able to
Yeah.
have a second lease of life.
So I completely agree with you. The way I like to explain it is as if uh, a phone goes into a phone hospital and needs to be fixed, and maybe their exterior looks different, but their functionality is like a new phone. So that's what we guarantee. If you go onto our website, you can see we sell 4 different types of phone categories. So
Yeah,
our premium, which would be equivalent to a new phone, then excellent condition, very good, and acceptable. But this is only the exterior, like the interior of the phone, and the functionality is 100%. And that's why we also have the warranty. And I think, well, the reason why Swappy was created by our founders back then, it was because they bought a used phone in a marketplace and were scammed and didn't want to go through this experience again because they wanted that trust aspect. But it is very difficult to explain to customers who have never purchased a refurbished product, either a phone or any other tech equipment, what is the difference. And we see that when customers actually purchase from us, and then through our own internal data, we see why did you purchase from us. The number one kind of aspect is the quality. So I think people are surprised and positively surprised, I would say, about the quality of the phone. And it comes in a box with the accessories. The experience is as if you are buying a new phone. It's just a refurbished phone.
yeah,
And then, of course, the affordability. We sell iPhones from 139 euros. So you can imagine that it's accessible to a very big audience and a very different audience, because like the product iPhone is considered quite a high priced product. So here we're giving access to this type of product at a different price point as well.
Hmm.
And of course, we have different models ranging from iPhone 8 upwards to the latest.
yeah. No, like the way I used to describe it in the phone shop was a refurbished phone is like, Joe, if you buy a car and you replace the engine, the body is still the same, but the internal mechanics are going to last you for the foreseeable future, let's say. So it's like, yeah, well, the body might look the same, the internals are not. So
Exactly.
it's going to work and you're going to be fine. I do like the price aspect. I always find, especially, Joe, I find it's very interesting is for the kind of teenage age group where it's like, you might be looking at your first smartphone, or it's that kind of optics of, I
Mhm.
wanted iPhone. So you can actually, essentially, by using a service like Swappy, you can get an iPhone for a similar kind of price to a mid-tier Android, and then you're still getting your, I suppose, that brand feeling of the premium feeling of I own an iPhone, rather than getting like a €200 Samsung, which, while they're still decent phones, just the look and the feel of them isn't going to be the same as buying like a 3-year-old iPhone.
Yeah, of course. And as well, you say the younger demographic, and that's something super interesting because, of course, we are a refurbished brand product, but we are also trying to build the brand on refurbished. So buying a swappy iPhone and kind of making people proud that they did purchase a sustainable choice. And as you say, like a car part, some of the phones may have some scratches, dents, but this is clearly visible in the category you buy. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can also buy an excellent condition or a premium. So there is a lot of products for different types of audiences, which I think is perfect in kind of the phone world. And
Yeah.
I think we managed to reach very broad like spectrum of customers because of it.
Yeah, actually, just an interesting point there in terms of, I suppose, the grading system. How many grades is there, and what's essentially the difference between the grades?
Yeah. So interesting that you asked. So initially we only had 3 grades, which is the kind of excellent. So it would essentially be like new. You would have very light signs of wear, but it wouldn't be visible, like not notable scratches. And then you would have the kind of very good, which might have some visible signs of wears, um, but the functionality inside the phone is as new. And then the acceptable, which here then has more heavy signs of wear, scratches and dents. But
Yeah,
again, functionality like new. And then our newest category, which we launched nearly 2 years ago, is our premium category. So this is completely like new, and it's a different customer experience as well. It's a different kind of box and boxing experience, and has had a lot of success as well, because there are customers looking for essentially completely like new, which is what this premium grade offers.
Yeah.
But interestingly, in Ireland, we see that kind of the two most popular are the excellent and very good. So these are the two most sold grades in Ireland.
I'm actually not remotely surprised about that. I think I think there is that optics thing of if I'm buying an iPhone, I want the best quality because
Mhm.
it's that thing of I want to show it off. Even though 99% of the time you're going to buy something like an OtterBox or some form of case, so any of those scratches and dings you're not going to see anyway.
Exactly, exactly.
It's like I don't know anybody. Actually, I probably only know one person who doesn't have a case on their phone, and I will happily stand there and say to their face that they're an absolute psycho. That they've spent €1,000 on a phone and you're not going to spend €20 on a case. Go away.
Yeah, I agree.
Mad.
I tend to be very clumsy with my phone, so I make sure I have the case and the tempered glass on top to make sure it's safe. But surprisingly, with the grades, of course, the excellent, very good are the most popular. But in terms of like the iPhone itself, it's not the most expensive or more recent models which are the most popular. It's more around like iPhone 12, 11, 13, and then some also lower kind of tiered models like the XR and SE. So that's also interesting that customers are not looking at least for the latest, but more kind of in the mid range of the iPhone.
Makes sense. Actually, it makes perfect sense. 'Cause again, I do think it's that you know, mammy buying for their kids. It's the teenager. It's somebody like me who has a tendency to destroy my phones. It's like I'm going to go buy the refurb rather than go out and buy something new for
Mhm.
€1,000 that I know I'm going to drop,
Yeah,
and I know I'm going to drop it because it happens way too often. This is why we don't go to the pub.
exactly. But that's how I found out about Swappy actually. I was living in Dublin, and I had my work phone and my personal phone, and I unfortunately broke my personal phone, and I wanted to buy a new phone. For me, it had to be an iPhone, as I'm used to iPhone, its interface, but I didn't want to spend €1,000 on a phone. I
Yeah,
just didn't have the money to spend, and I didn't want to. And then I Googled, iPhone, see if I could find a marketplace, and then Swappy showed up.
mm,
And I, completely honest, I had no idea what refurbished was. I read the website, read reviews. It looked legitimate. It looked like a well-established company, so I thought I'd give it a go. And so I did, and I was completely surprised in the positive sense of, okay, this is actually a really good product. It is
mm.
refurbished. It works like new. I have no problems with it. And then the job showed up on LinkedIn a week later, and I applied. So sometimes, yeah, that
War works in mysterious ways. It's almost like it was just the right timing.
exactly.
So, Joe, it's interesting. I obviously have the website open here, and I keep finding new things. So, like, there's a lot of mention of the circular economy. I
Yeah.
suppose it'd be very interesting to hear, like, your take on it, the swappy kind of goal around the circular economy, because I think a lot of people, while they might know the term, don't necessarily understand what that means.
Yeah. So that has been or is our biggest focus right now, is kind of the circular economy. So traditionally, people would know us for selling phones, but as explained in the beginning, selling phones, but we also buy phones, and that is kind of the concept of the circular economy, right? You buy, then you sell, then you buy, then you sell, but you maintain the product in the same circular system. So we see a huge opportunity in this market. Like only 15% of pre-owned phones are sold. So it means essentially that 85% of phones are sitting at home doing nothing in a drawer. So there is a huge opportunity for awareness for people at home who have any phone, that it does still have value. Even if it's broken or doesn't work, you can still sell it and it still has a certain value. You can get money for it, but then you also contribute to the circular economy. So if your phone is not repairable, we would still recycle the parts and make sure that we give the phone a second life in some way. And with the kind of how it's going in the kind of economy and e-waste right now, by 2030, they predict, I think it's 75 million metric tons, if I'm not mistaken, which would be equivalent of 1,000 laptops a second of waste, to put it into human terms. So
that's scary.
it is scary. And of course, Swappy, we are a small player if we look at kind of the global world, but with these small kind of actions and creating awareness that you should, or you should give a second life to your used tech at home is really important, because it is contributing to e-waste. And as you said, not taking part of the circular economy.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like myself and Martin need to have a chat, because I know the two of us have just the nature of like reviewing products and stuff. I can tell you now that the two of us definitely have a box each of just like old phones from the last 4 or 5 years.
You should sell them.
Just yeah, I know. So what happens is that like you'll have someone like the brother or something like that who'll break their phone. You're like, here you go.
That's also another form of circular economy.
You get rid of one or two, but generally speaking, I'd say that I probably have 8 to 10 phones in the box somewhere in here. It's not a great look, but I was looking at your environmental impact report. That it's really fascinating.
Yeah,
like it's like I would definitely recommend anybody who's one into sustainability or just is curious about what this looks like, what the circular economy is, the rationale for refurbing phones. Go onto the website swappy.com, go download the report and have a read of it, because like we're getting to a place, I think, with the economy in general. Like we saw this during COVID, where some phones didn't get released. PlayStations took longer to release because the access to material in general was getting harder and harder, and it's getting more expensive to get it. So the more, I suppose, people can get involved and recycle their old products, it's going to make everybody's life a lot easier.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I definitely do recommend to read our sustainability report. As you mentioned, this was something that we created in-house. So a lot of the numbers are based on kind of our own production and how much CO2 emissions we save, that I mentioned at the beginning. But to make customers aware that the emissions of manufacturing a new smartphone is very high, around 80 kg. And then on top of that, you don't have packaging, you don't have shipping. So that adds, I don't know, another 2 kg on top of that. And by refurbishing, as I mentioned, you save 78% of this. So it is a big difference. Obviously, it's not 100, which one day I hope we can strive to be closer to that. But I think it's already a great milestone.
Yeah.
And definitely it is great to work for a company as well who has this sustainability in their backbone, and it's kind of the driving force of the company. So
yeah, I've definitely seen it in other brands, and I won't name names, where they will use these kind of terminologies essentially as fancy gimmicks to be like, look how great we are. What I like about Swappy in general, and even from when I saw you first a few years ago, is like it's the core of the business. It's literally the purpose of the brand, rather than other companies who go buzzword sustainability, buzzword replace, recycle. It's like,
yeah.
actually cares.
And I would say, well, I can't speak for our founders, but I know this is very close to their heart, and they kind of the e-waste and focusing on reducing this has been one of the main pillars at Swappy. We also, I explained our refurbishment, that we do refurbish our own phones. So we actually do have our own refurbishment centers in Europe. So we kind of control this process ourselves in Helsinki, where we're based in Finland, and then one in Estonia. And we've actually brought a few journalists and TV channels to visit, because it is something customers are not so aware of, have never seen, to kind of see what this process looks like, to make it more visible and aware. And I think that also creates more trust when people know actually what's happening. It's not just the phone that's coming in, we're fixing it and then selling it. We're how the process works and how we're focused on having green energy, sustainable packaging, all of that as well, on top of making sure the process as well is reducing the maximum CO2 that we can in terms of production.
Makes so much sense. I think I have a good idea of the answer to my next question. So it's like, if there's anything that you would change about the current tech industry, what would it be and why? I think I have a fairly good idea where this is going to go.
If I could change, well, that is a difficult question, because tech can be defined as a lot of things, right? What do you mean by tech?
I am very much leaving that open to however you feel. It can be about like your own personal thoughts on the tech industry. It can be about obviously swappy space in the industry. I think questions like this, I actually just find it interesting to kind of get an understanding of what people think is important. Because I think for me, it's always been a case of access and letting people understand that technology isn't your enemy. That for me, we see things like AI, and you've automatically got the fear mongering of it's going to take our jobs, or you get the I've always experienced this negative aspect of tech, that when you start talking about new technologies, that you automatically get fear mongering alongside it. So for me personally, that's kind of the route I take when it comes. And that's, I suppose, why I got into Goosed in the first place, is trying to make technology understandable and accessible to the everyday person, and let people know that it's not terrifying. Alexa isn't listening to you. Your phone is not recording everything you do. The world isn't as dark and scary as you think it is.
No, and it's a common misconception, right, with privacy and data. But I would say, so your question was about what I would change in,
Yeah.
well, I guess it's just in terms of tech, I think there's a big lack of education in the market. So as you mentioned with AI, I feel that people and companies need to be better at explaining what the product is and what information is there. So this would be more in relate to new tech, and then like companies tech, like products like us. I would say that more transparency into the processes and where it's manufactured and what involves the process, and the sustainability aspect of it, I would say, should be more and more mandatory to communicate, and really a focus for all tech companies. So making sure that anything that comes out that's new, that has some sort of circular economy aspect to it, or sustainable aspect, as I feel there is so much waste, and we are contributing to a lot of waste in different ways in our daily life, even when we go to the supermarket and we grab a plastic bag to put our fruit in, like these small things. Obviously, no one's perfect. I do this myself too, but being more aware. So I think educating the consumers of what are the sustainable choices out there in terms of tech, and making this more known.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I mean,
it's a bit dreamer. I don't know if it will happen so fast, but we can strive for it.
Look, it takes small baby steps, and isn't what's it someone said before? It's like 1% difference every day makes 365% difference in a year. So
Exactly.
you can make small changes that actually add up to be a huge difference later. So I think that's a really good kind of message to take from it. The next question I have for you is, I suppose now that you're, feet under the table with the new role as the country manager in Ireland, what is the goal for the next year? What do we hope to achieve?
Yeah, interesting, because we started during COVID, and it was interesting because some companies really thrived during COVID, after COVID. So luckily, we were one of these companies, and I think we managed to establish our brand quite quickly within that time. For the future, so last year, we're still continuing growing in terms of our B2C. So selling the phones to the consumers is a big part of our business. And we've been still growing in kind of double-digit growth last year. But this year, what we want to really focus on is the consumer to business side, so that actually customers can sell their phones. As I mentioned to you, like 85% of people are not selling their phones, keeping them at home. So the mission this year is to really educate consumers. So, for example, talking to you about this now is a very good way of doing that, because hopefully whoever is listening can actually be like, oh yeah, I do have a couple of phones, like you said, and maybe tomorrow you'll think a little bit more about it and want to sell or give a second life to your phone. So that would be our big focus in Ireland for this year. And then I would say that um, kind of the second focus in Ireland is just making refurbished mainstream. So this has been our motto and slogan, but really making this word refurbished, which is not a very well-known word and very much associated with used, to kind of educate users on that concept as well. And yeah, I would say that's, in short, the two main objectives. So kind of the consumer part of the business, so the sustainability aspects and education, and then the making refurbishment mainstream in Ireland.
Yeah, I think when people, definitely from my own experience, when people hear the word refurbishment, it's not a sexy word, but
No,
sustainable choices. It's
they
about,
should have made a better word for it. It's very long and very hard to remember.
yeah, it's the sustainable decision.
Exactly, the sustainable choice. And I guess when customers are thinking of upgrading their phone, that they then really ponder on how their next choice has an impact on the environment.
Yeah, I definitely find it interesting, especially from like a B2B element, that like you'll have companies, most of the time I find with businesses, the like the package is like a SIM only package, so they're essentially buying the
Mhm.
phone. So I don't understand why they'll go to like the networks and spend ridiculous monies on a brand new phone when they could use a service like yours, because essentially in order to try keep their running costs down, because they have no idea if I'm going to stay in the business 2 years plus, so they're not going to take out a contract
Yeah,
on my behalf. They're probably getting a SIM only business package and then buying the phones. So yeah, from the B2B element, like there's like a huge opportunity for companies, especially in Ireland, to wake up, I think,
yeah.
and actually see the options that are there.
And we do have the B2B side as well. I didn't mention it because it hasn't been our biggest focus, but it's definitely there and available for businesses who do want to make that choice.
Mm.
And I feel particularly in Ireland, because I manage both Ireland and Portugal, which in a way are very different but very similar markets. But I would say the main difference between Irish consumers and companies is that a lot of the phones consumers have are blocked for their network.
Mm.
So as well, one of the big reasons, of course, we were very interested in the Irish market. We had a lot of strong ties with ex-employees who had lived, worked in Dublin, and it's our first English-speaking market.
Yep.
But we saw a huge opportunity of unlocked phones as well, so giving access to Irish customers of buying an unlocked phone without it being tied to a contract or a network.
Yeah, that was definitely something I noticed in my car phone days. So you'd have the stock room, and essentially you'd have 4 or 5 batches of iPhones. Here's your Vodafone ones. Here's your 3 ones. Here's your O2 ones. Here's your Air ones, and then here's your unlocked ones for prepay. And you, like, half the time you'd be like, "This is unnecessary."
Yeah. Would you see a price difference between like the different networks, or would it just,
No, essentially the phones would have been locked by network for the purpose of. It's probably no surprise that Car from Warehouse are out of business nowadays. Now, to be honest, as much as I loved working for them, and as much as like myself and Martin actually met in Carphone, and we've been running this site since our days in Car from Warehouse.
okay,
So
wow.
it's a business that was very close to our hearts. But in terms of the pricing, no, it would have actually been the network controls. So
Okay.
they didn't, if they were supplying phones, they didn't want you being able to sell them on O2 or 3. So it was like, we'll supply you X amount of these rather than just having, but
Yeah.
yet they'd all come from the same centralized
Yeah.
distributor.
Yeah, exactly. And would you now, uh, knowing what you know, I'm not saying that you would buy a swappy, but would you consider a refurbished phone when buying or upgrading for.
It's never been a thing that's bothered me. I suppose I've been lucky enough over the last few years that we review phones, so sometimes I get to keep them. It doesn't happen very often, but at the moment I have the Google Pixel, so Google were actually very nice to be like, just hold on to that. We don't need to send it back. But if I was to go and buy a phone, it wouldn't bother me at all to go buy a refurbished, because the way I look at it is and it was definitely like, phones are essentially on 2-year cycles now. So if you're on like the 13 versus the 15, you see a difference between them. But the 13 to the 14, you don't really see a difference, because I find that phones are designed based on the contract cycles. Mm-hmm. So because the phones are on a 2-year cycle, you'll see incremental changes every 2 years. So I'm not going spending a fortune on the latest iPhone when I can buy the model 2 years back and the spec sheet is 90% the same, bar maybe a minor difference in the processing chip that 99% of people don't actually know what that means. And it doesn't actually make a difference to the performance. It's just a slightly bigger number.
No, and the average person, the way they use their phone, wouldn't tell the difference from one processor to another, I would say. But
what do most people use their phones for? WhatsApp, social media, YouTube, music.
Exactly.
It's mad. I really like the idea of what you're trying to do here. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think, especially in the Irish market.
Had you heard of Swapy before? And I won't be offended if you haven't.
No, I have, because I suppose I've been in the tech space for long enough, and you would have been a competitor to CompuB, which is now Select, and they obviously do their own range of refurb phones as well. So when you were looking at all these kind of areas in the market, then I had done a little bit of research on you a few years back.
Okay, so you do know the market a little bit.
Yeah, I've done my time. I've definitely done my time, but like I think a lot of Irish people, it's getting that message out there that this is something that's available, and that understanding that it's not like going on to Dundee and buy Mickey down the road's old phone. It's actually something that has been, looked at. It's been, as you said, sent to the little phone hospital. It's been touched up. It's been fixed up, and it's essentially under the hood a brand new phone. So it's not like you're going to get ripped off by some fella selling an LDU unit or something that is just a crock.
Yeah, I agree. And then the trust aspect of it is so important, and that's why. Well, there is the warranty, there is the 30-day return if you're not happy. So I think at least that gives customers more security if they want to buy it, test it out, and then return it. And obviously, being new to the category, people are always very skeptical, which I would say is normal. But hopefully and gradually, we will kind of break these barriers down, and as I mentioned, make it mainstream for the Irish consumers. But I think there's huge opportunity, and especially in the younger demographics. So I would say kids or young teenagers, young adults having their first phone, or we see a big trend of parents who know us from their kids. So they have seen maybe a YouTube ad of Swapy or TikTok. We are present in all the channels, and we're quite broad with our marketing, but we tend to see this trend in Ireland where parents get to know us from their kids. And obviously, not all parents want to spend the big buck for the first phone for their kids, because one, they might break it, two, they might not understand the value. So then this is an excellent choice, and it's great that already the younger generation is starting to choose this as a phone. And we actually see that the younger generation are more concerned with the sustainability aspect of it. So it's really interesting. And the older, there's like a gap. It's the kind of 55 plus, and then the younger demographic who has like sustainability as a top choice when purchasing a new phone.
Makes a lot of sense. Definitely the younger generation care more. They definitely care more. And I'm just even thinking of my own niece. I'm like, if my brother was actually to go and buy her a new phone, I could tell you right now, he's not going and buying her a brand new
Yeah,
phone, because we both know what's going to happen. She's going to leave it behind. She's going to,
yeah, or lose it.
yeah,
I'm not sure
100%.
I would either buy, well, obviously working as software and biased, I would never buy a new phone now knowing what I know.
Yep,
But obviously the price aspect of it,
huge.
as much as I want to say this is the sustainable choice and it should be the number one reason why people buy from us, is obviously the price. Like it
Yeah,
is a very good price point for the product that you get. And um,
yeah.
yeah,
Like I'm just clicking on the site here, so I'm looking at the. Whoa, something didn't load there. So you have like the iPhone SE, which is obviously a
hmm
very popular mid-tier iPhone,
hmm
and that is 140 euro.
hmm
Like
and
what?
it's still a great phone.
Yeah, like it's 4 years old. The spec sheet is really good. It will have 64 gigs of memory. It's good
hmm
condition, and if you wanted to upgrade to the highest possible condition, you add 20 euro onto it.
Yeah,
Which, like, come on. And
and
then
then sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying, I think as well people would get that there's that mental thing of, I've bought something that's sustainable, so look how great I am. You get that
Exactly.
little buzz out of it. It's like, yeah, I bought a refurb phone because I care. And then you
Yeah.
get that little ego boost then when you're going talking to your mates about your new phone. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Exactly. And you would be surprised that with all the marketing we do, most of our customers come to us through word of mouth. So it is this kind of bragging that look at me, I bought this refurbished sustainable phone. You don't know what it is, you should. And that's how like most of the customers in Ireland come to us, is actually from the experience of previous customers, which is great, which means that we're doing a good job, I hope,
Yeah.
in with buying and selling. But on top of that, you have a lot of add-ons you can add. So I mentioned the grades, but you can also add a new battery. So of course we refurbish them and we might replace the battery, but we guarantee it at a minimum of 80%. Some people want this to be guaranteed at a higher percentage. So we also do that. And then of course the trading part, the circular economy, you can trade in your phone. So, and actually, if when we talk about tech, something fun we're doing, still not in Ireland, but hopefully soon, we have these kind of ATMs, Sweden, Finland, where you can go. It literally looks like an ATM, and you bring your old phone. Let's say I would be the person who would be lazy to kind of pack the phone and send it or go to the post office. So here would be in the odd supermarket, an ATM, and you put in your phone there, and it actually manages to give you an estimate of the value of the phone. So it's the grading inside the ATM, and then
Mm,
you put in your bank account details, and you get paid into your bank account. Then the phone gets sent to us. We pick up.
class idea. Class idea. I don't know if you know about the new bottle return scheme in Ireland, but it's not going very well.
Yeah, I heard about it. So there's some friction towards
I
that.
think
It's
this
strange.
idea.
In Norway, I'm half Norwegian. That's been going on for, I don't know, years and years. But it's, what do you feel about it?
I like. So I have family in Germany as well. My family in the Black Forest in Germany, so it's something I've seen before. I think it makes sense. The problem is in a lot of places it doesn't work. So, like, let's say there's a shop across the road from me. It's never on for a start.
No.
There, no, that one's never. That one in particular, it always has out of service software updating on it.
Okay,
So
that's not great for.
I haven't actually seen that one work at the local Lidl that's about 5 minutes down the road. It's not accessible, so if you're in a wheelchair, you can't reach because I
Okay,
have
yeah.
to even put my hand up here to do it. So it's, do you know what it is? A wonderful scheme that essentially has created more barriers by making it more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, but not great execution
Not
of the.
great execution, but it's a wonderful idea. I think we'll get there. There's probably a few
Mhm.
tweaks and kind of touches to those machines, and when people get used to something like that, then your ATMs are an absolute tap in at that point.
Yeah,
It's
and I
like,
guess it's getting into the habit of it as well, and inserting that in your daily life. And I would say with bottles, it's different because it's something that you have more frequently than a phone, right? But
yeah,
but once you get in the habit of as well of returning, makes a lot of sense in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, I think people just don't like the effort half the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much effort. I actually don't think I have any other questions for you today. This has been really, really insightful. I think, as I said, I'm actually just looking at the iPhone SE 2020 there. So I've actually set it up with a new battery, excellent quality, 64 gigs, €190. So if
Yeah,
anybody's out there looking at buying a new phone, buying an iPhone, like have a look at swappy.com. Go look at the pricing that's available. Look at the different options that are available. Because for a phone of that spec for that price, you are not going to find an Android of equal quality at that price. But Luisa, from yourself, where can people find you online on social media? I suppose that would be a great place to start. And
yeah. So unfortunately, we only sell online in Ireland, so you can find us at swappy.com or swappy.ie. We of course Instagram swappy_ie, and then on the website you will find all our other socials. But really, thank you so much for having me. I think it's a great opportunity to share a bit more about Swappy, what we do, and the recent role. And I really appreciate your time, John. And super
I'd
interesting
love
to
this.
know that you have so much experience in the topic itself. And I hope next time you buy refurbished when you're thinking of buying a new phone.
I'm going to go and actually go, like tomorrow's Good Friday, so I'm going to go rummage through my box of absolute destruction and see what phones are left in there, and I'm going to go and find a place to put them. So I have even taken something useful to take away from this today. So
Amazing,
I
amazing.
really, really appreciate your time. So anybody out there listening, you can find us on pretty much every social channel, Goosed_ie. We're on Threads, Instagram, the artist formerly known as Twitter, nowadays called X. We're on TikTok. Martin does some amazing content over on TikTok. We are on Threads. So basically, if you exist on social media, we are there. This podcast is going out on YouTube. It's going out on Spotify. And if there's ever any questions, you can reach out to us on any of the social media channels, and we will definitely share links. So good night, goodbye, good morning. Basically, whenever you're listening to this, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.